Everybody has heard of Suzanne Collins, or at least you've heard of her book series, The Hunger Games. But most people don't know that she wrote another series before The Hunger Games called The Underland Chronicles, which is a children's fantasy series about a kid named Gregor who falls into an underground world beneath New York and discovers he is the chosen one in a series of prophecies. Think Percy Jackson meets Arthur and the Minimoys. And I freaking love this series. It tackles a lot of heavier topics, and the ending always wrenches my heart out every time I reread it. There are giant bats that people can ride on, and there's a cool badass child queen who has silver hair and purple eyes. Hello? I've wanted there to be an animated adaptation of this series for a long time. I mean, it was published in the 2000s. Why hasn't anybody jumped on this yet? Everybody knows the Hunger Games, but it still seems like nobody knows about the Underland Chronicles, and I think a movie or a TV show would have brought it into the social consciousness. When I got into the animation industry, I realized that I was in a place where I could be the one to make a show happen. We had a program where we could pitch our ideas, and if the development team liked it enough, they would help you make a whole package that they can show to potential investors, and voila, your show gets made. And naively, I thought that if I was enthusiastic enough and explained why I liked the story so much, and explained why the books would look cool as a TV show, that would be enough for them to say yes. I would have my Underland Chronicles show made, and I would be its proud creator. That didn't happen. Because you see, pitching a show isn't that simple. Yes, you do have to be passionate and show why you connect so much to the story and why it would make a good show, but there's a lot more calculated thinking that goes into it. You have to explain the plot and the characters well enough that it's intriguing, but not so much that it gets long and boring to listen to. But you also can't make it too simple because then there's not enough information to go on. For kids shows, you also have to think about how such a story will appeal to kids. Is the story exciting? Is it adventurous? Are the main characters somebody that kids can look up to as a role model or want to be friends with? You have to explain yourself and why you want to get the story made, but you also can't spend so much time on it that you don't have enough time to explain the actual important stuff from the story. But at the same time, if you don't pitch yourself as a creator well enough, then that could come off as impersonal. There's a lot to keep in mind. It's a balancing game, and you have to do it all under 30 minutes. Needless to say, I got rejected, and I was super bummed out. And I won't lie, I cried. But I did get some very useful feedback out of the experience. My pitch failed primarily because I did a terrible job selling it. I was describing only surface level stuff because it was my first time pitching and I wasn't really sure how deep you were supposed to go, and I just wasn't explaining well enough why I personally connected to the series. There was also another factor, and it's an incredibly frustrating one, and that's timing. When I pitched the show, the team already had another children's fantasy show with similar plot elements under development. And it's incredibly frustrating because it's totally out of my control and it's totally out of my knowledge. There's also the aspect of the market and investors, and that's something that's also completely out of our control. You could have the most perfectly pitched show, but if there's another similar show under development, or if there's currently no investor interest in the specific genre you're pitching in, then your pitch will probably get rejected. But let's say the stars align. You give a perfect pitch, it is currently unique, and the market is open for a show of your genre, and the team helps you create amazing packages to send out to investors and broadcasters. That's still not the end. You could come all this way, but if the show can't find writers or directors or an investor or a broadcasting company, then the show becomes stuck. For how long? Who knows? And that is also another frustrating aspect because again, it's totally out of your control. You yourself have already done everything correctly and there's still a chance your show won't get made. And I know a lot of these considerations seem trivial. Like, who cares if there are two shows with similar themes? As long as they're both good and otherwise distinct, why can't they just both be made? It's trivial to us, but we are not the ones with an inside look on the investor scene, and we don't have the knowledge of a development team who has to manage schedules and budgets and all that. It's not for us to judge. A while back, I heard there was a market interest for children's shows based on pre-existing IPs. I jumped at the chance to pitch again because the Underland Chronicles does fit into this very specific niche. I took the time to refine my presentation and practice it and receive very helpful feedback from my coworkers. But even though the presentation was much improved this time, and there was a market specifically for a kids show based on pre-existing IP, the pitch still could not get accepted because there was another show that, while not in the same demographic, has a main character with a similar goal and journey. And because while the market might be open for kids shows, that doesn't mean it's open for all genres of kids shows. In this case specifically, the team wasn't sure there was a market interest in fantasy, so they couldn't accept the pitch. And that's not to say my pitch was perfect and would have been otherwise accepted, because I'm sure there are a lot of things I can improve on. But there are simply a lot of aspects of pitching that are unpredictable, and even though I already had a leg in the door, pitching is still not an easy process. I still really wish to get the Underland Chronicles adapted, and there are certainly more intensive strategies I can try, but I also have to be realistic about the amount of work I'm putting into this. While I was focused on this pitch, I was abandoning all my other projects, my personal projects that were my original ideas, and I had to prioritize what I care about more: somebody else's work or my own. My best bet for the Underland Chronicles now is to wait until the market changes to have an interest in children's fantasy, but again, that's something I can't predict or control, so right now, I'm going to work on my own stuff. If you're interested in pitching a show, whether it's original or based on something, my goal here isn't to discourage you. I definitely want you guys to go for it. I just wanted to document my experience with it and also to share a side of the industry that many people rarely hear about. And I don't know, maybe you learned something. Maybe this is just entertainment. But that's the video, and I'm interested if any of you have tried pitching before. Definitely let me know below, and I'll see y'all later. Bye bye.